The manhwa opens with a quiet, sunlit view of a library, tall shelves lined with books that hold centuries of human thought. Among them stands a young woman, her eyes tracing the faded spine of an ancient volume. She is Arya, 18, an ordinary college student with an extraordinary fondness for stories. She gazes at the open pages before her. It feels wild to her, the idea that one can glimpse into the minds of people who lived and breathed centuries ago, their thoughts immortalized in ink. Her phone buzzes softly, a reminder of the world outside. Friends are asking if she wants to grab bubble tea, but she declines, her focus bound to the task before her. There's still research to be done for her thesis, and she refuses to let herself be distracted. Yet, as the minutes slip away, she drifts deeper into the written worlds before her. Books have that effect on her, they transport her across time and space, making her forget the boundaries of reality. Then, in a sudden moment of awareness, a thought crosses her mind. How did she end up reading something completely unrelated to her thesis again? She is supposed to be searching for research material, not wandering through random pages of forgotten lore. With a faint sigh, she starts flipping through papers and pulling out relevant sources. That's when her eyes catch on a particular book, one she doesn't remember picking up. Its cover is a deep shade of crimson, aged and elegant. The title gleams faintly in gold, Lunaris, The History of the Elven Kingdom. Arya tilts her head, curiosity sparking. It sounds like a work of fantasy, perhaps some old mythic chronicle. As she begins to read, the story unfolds before her eyes. It speaks of King Cyrus, one of the Elven Kingdom's most formidable rulers. His rise to power had been swift and merciless. He crushed the rebellion left by his predecessor, doused the flames of war with an iron fist, and ushered in a golden age that elevated the Elven Kingdom to rival even the mighty Bull Empire. He was adored by many, yet feared just as much. But behind the tales of his triumphs lay the truth of a tyrant. Cyrus Jean Reinhardt, the 14th monarch of the Elven Kingdom, though remembered for his greatness, was a man of cruel conviction. He was a notorious misogynist. Under his reign, women vanished from positions of authority. Not a single female voice was allowed to speak within the halls of power. Even the women's academies, once legacies of enlightened queens, were closed and abandoned, their wisdom lost to dust. This king, cloaked in moral justification and self-righteous purpose, had forced women out of public life and confined them to the shadows of their homes. His biases extended even to his own family, for he favored his sons openly and made no secret of his desire for a male heir. Yet, fate seemed determined to mock him. His harem bore daughter after daughter, 6 in total, with no prince to inherit his throne. Then came the fateful prophecy. As the queen prepared to give birth once more, the head prophet delivered a revelation that shook the kingdom. The unborn child was destined to lead the Elven Kingdom to a glory greater than ever before. From that moment, all of Lunaris held its breath, waiting for the birth that would change history. Arya reads on, her eyes widening as the vivid images in her mind begin to blur the line between imagination and reality. Then, her foot slips against the polished floor, and the world tilts around her. The book falls open, pages fluttering like wings. When she blinks, the library is gone. Confusion and disbelief twist through her thoughts as she looks around, breath caught in her throat. Why does this imagined scene feel so incredibly real right now? She cries out that this is supposed to be a dream, that she needs to wake up. In her first life, her parents had passed away much too soon, so she had probably craved a complete family more than anyone. Perhaps she had even wished to have both parents in her next life. Tears fill her eyes as she hears someone announce the birth of another daughter. She is furious, thinking how she cannot bear to look at that ice-cold face. What a heartless jerk. It feels as though there is no turning back now. The king picks up the infant with an expression devoid of warmth, muttering that a 7th daughter is of no use, as all of them seem equally clueless and delicate. She bursts into tears, screaming inwardly, wasn't he clueless and delicate too when he was born? What is wrong with him? The king calls for Lucian and coldly reminds the queen that the head prophet had foretold that this child she bore him would be the heir destined to lead the Elven Kingdom to greater glory. He orders her to remember that this little one is more his child than hers and commands her to take Arya to the Tower of God. The Tower of God, a place where people are sacrificed to the gods. Anyone sent there has only one outcome, death. Though, it is said that their souls find shelter with the gods. She cannot believe that he truly intends to do this. The queen falls to her knees, begging him to spare Arya. She knows she has disappointed him, but Arya is still their child. Her trembling voice pleads that if he cannot bear her presence, then at least send her far away. No one will ever know who she really is. The king remains silent, but the queen can tell from his expression that there is no way he would ever allow anyone to discover that his 7th child is a girl. To keep the truth buried, Lucian's real mother had already been executed. Everyone who knew anything had been silenced, forbidden from breathing a single word. Before leaving, the king warns the queen to make certain that he never lays eyes on the child again. Outside the palace, under the heavy shroud of night, the queen entrusts her newborn to a cloaked man. With tears streaming down her cheeks, she whispers to her sweet baby girl that she wishes her nothing but the best, and that they must never meet again. Just like that, Arya is sent away right after being born, her own father wanting her dead simply because she is a girl. Far from the capital, in the quiet outskirts of a small town, a mansion stirs with gossip. The maids whisper that the Baron has apparently brought home a child. They murmur among themselves that he already has 3 sons, and now he's gone and knocked someone up on the side. All men, they claim, are cut from the same cloth. They are mortified for the Weir family, pitying whichever poor woman has been abandoned and is suffering now. They say the Baron always seemed so upright and proper, but it turns out he's just another scoundrel. Poor Lady Catherine, she must be absolutely heartbroken. Goodness gracious. However, the Baron has already told his wife the real story. As the gossip spreads through the halls, a boy bursts into the room. It is Aner Weir, the second son of Baron Weir, 12 years old. He demands to know whether the maids are telling the truth. Lady Catherine scolds her son gently, reminding him that he is not a baby anymore and cannot simply blurt out whatever he hears. Beside them stands Muriel Weir, the eldest son, 15 years old, composed and calm. Without another word, he decides to take Aner outside. Near him is their youngest, Very Weir, only 4 years old, a mischievous little troublemaker who watches the scene with curious eyes. Finally, Baron Stephen Weir, 50 years old, gathers everyone in the room. His voice carries authority as he tells them there is something they all need to understand. He pauses, letting the silence sink in, then declares firmly that the child Arya is one of them. She is their sister. The Baron commands his children to get along, but Aner shouts furiously that their father just suddenly brings home some girl he had with another woman and now has the nerve to tell them to accept her. His anger boils over, the words bursting out before he can stop them. Muriel quickly steps forward to hold him back, but Aner shoves him away, his voice trembling with emotion as he calls his brother a coward for staying silent. How could Muriel just stand by and let this old man tear their family apart like this? Muriel says nothing, his expression composed yet distant, though the tension in his eyes betrays how tightly he's holding his temper. Very, still too young to understand the weight of the situation, biggest concern is simple: who exactly is this mysterious woman everyone keeps talking about? The Baroness finally raises her voice, demanding silence. She tells them all that she has already forgiven their father, so why are they still so angry? Her tone is firm, though her voice trembles faintly beneath the weight of exhaustion. Aner's fists clench at his sides. He protests that it's not fair they should kick the Baron out and let him live with that woman if he wants to. His mother's eyes flash as she orders him to stop. From this day onward, she declares, Arya is part of this family. Whether they like it or not, they will treat her as such. But Aner's defiance only hardens. He tears himself away from Muriel's restraining hand and shouts that he refuses to acknowledge a homewrecker's child. He claims that the girl's veins carry the blood of a horrible woman, and that no matter what anyone says, she will never be his sister. The Baron sighs heavily and instructs Muriel to check on his brother. He doesn't want Aner doing anything reckless out of anger. Muriel mutters a cold sure before walking away, his gaze briefly flicking toward Arya, cold and distant, before he turns his back on her entirely. The Baroness watches him go with a troubled expression. It is clear that her sons cannot bring themselves to accept this situation. She quietly wonders whether they should really hide the truth from their children at all. After all, the town is already buzzing with whispers ever since the Baron returned with a baby in his arms. But the Baron insists that the less their sons know, the safer they will be. Let people say what they wish, it will all fade eventually. And so, Arya stays with the Weir family. Though her brothers are not exactly thrilled about her presence, life in the manor begins to settle. The maids adore her, giggling as they bathe her tiny body, charmed by how cute and well-behaved she is. For Arya, however, being naked and completely at the mercy of strangers feels genuinely ridiculous. She keeps her composure, but inwardly, she can't help thinking that if she had known her birth would bring so much happiness and laughter to those around her, she would have felt far more grateful to have come into the world in this life than in the last. One sunny afternoon, the Baroness takes her out for a walk in the garden. The flowers are in bloom, and the air is warm and fragrant. Not far away, Aner is playing fetch with his dog, still nursing a quiet resentment in his heart. When he spots Arya and his stepmother nearby, a mischievous idea sparks in his mind. He throws the ball deliberately toward where Arya is and calls for his dog to fetch it. The Baroness moves quickly to stop the large animal from charging near the child, but in her haste, she stumbles and accidentally knocks Arya off balance. Both Anna and the Baroness freeze in horror as the little girl begins to fall. Everyone is angry at him. What on earth is he trying to do here? Arya is crying uncontrollably, her sobs echoing through the manor. Baroness tries desperately to calm her down, but it's all in vain. The maids, pale and frantic, gasp in horror at the sight before them. Good heavens, is that a knot on her? They exclaim, their voices trembling as they mutter that if she's really hurt, they can't even bear to imagine it. The very thought is too terrifying to consider. The Baroness rushes forward and kneels beside Arya, gently reaching for her. She asks if the girl is all right. Arya whimpers that it hurts like hell. The scene quickly shifts to the doctor's arrival. After a tense inspection, he finally declares that she's lucky. Miss Arya, he says, is perfectly fine. Just a few scrapes, nothing serious. A bit of ointment, and she'll be good as new. But the Baron's expression darkens as he turns to Anna. Fury flashes in his eyes as he demands to know how his son could be so reckless. What if something truly awful had happened to Arya? And what about Lucky? Did he even stop to think what would happen to him if he got disciplined for this mess? Without room for excuses, he declares that Anna is grounded for the next 3 months. Muriel, standing nearby, narrows her eyes and calls him an idiot. Very trying to intervene, leans closer to his brother and whispers that he'll tell him a secret. That girl, Arya, is a total witch. She's not someone he wants to cross. He insists Anna is completely clueless. Muriel, startled by his words, demands to know how Yuri could possibly know that. Yuri waves his hands, panicking, insisting that he didn't do anything wrong. But Muriel's sharp tone cuts through the air as she warns him that if he used dark magic on regular people, he has no idea what kind of trouble he could land himself in. Very tries to defend himself, begging her to cut him some slack. He explains that all he did was use a tiny, low-level dark magic spell, just enough to give her a few boils. But here's the strange part, she's totally immune to all dark magic. If that's not the mark of a witch, then what is? Muriel can hardly believe what she's hearing. He's admitting to using magic, even if it was only a small amount, on a child. Meanwhile, on the other side of the house, Anna quietly goes to see Arya. At that moment, everyone else is still caught up in their worry and commotion, but perhaps she is the only one who really sees his face then. His expression is full of guilt and worry, his eyes uneasy, remorseful. He probably never meant to hurt her. He only wanted to tease this outsider, to teach her a childish lesson. When Arya notices his anxious face, she smiles faintly just to make him feel better. That small, gentle smile makes Anna's heart leap. His eyes widen with surprise, and before anyone realizes it, the two children are holding hands, their tension dissolving into shy warmth. The Baroness watches the scene and sighs with soft relief, saying that he was only being impulsive. Look at them now, getting along so well. But Anna's heart beats a little too fast as he looks down at her tiny hand in his. She's just a little kid, he reminds himself, yet somehow that thought doesn't make the strange flutter in his chest go away. Arya tries to tell him that she's totally fine and not upset with him at all. She makes an effort to show that she isn't angry, even adding in her soft, childish voice that he's actually her favorite. Hearing this, Anna feels a strange warmth in his chest, something like affection blooming unexpectedly. Very watching from the side, can't help but notice the look in his brother's eyes. The boy is completely smitten already. He mutters that it's almost ridiculous how taken Anna is with her. And then, with a puzzled expression, he wonders aloud if Arya doesn't seem far too mature for someone who's supposed to be a newborn. Muriel quickly reminds him that he himself is far too mature for a 4-year-old, and that perhaps the world simply works in strange ways. The next day, Anna goes to his mother and asks if he can visit Arya again, not just for that day, but more often. It's become something of a habit. He comes to her side every chance he gets, always asking if she's awake, if she's smiling, if she'll play. One afternoon, the Baroness sighs and tells him that Arya is about to go to sleep, and it's best if he heads out for now. But Anna frowns and argues that his father already told him he's grounded for 3 months, so technically, he can't go anywhere anyway, and besides, he just wants to play with her. The Baroness, amused by his persistence, finally relents. She tells him to stay, but to make sure Arya doesn't roll off the bed and hurt herself. She warns him not to wake her up, because it took ages to get her to finally fall asleep. The Baroness watches for a moment, her expression softening as she sees how much Anna has warmed up to the little girl. It's almost hard to believe. Some of the maids whisper quietly among themselves, wondering who this strange child really is, and why she doesn't seem lifeless like they first feared. To Anner, she feels so small, so soft, undeniably alive. He looks at her peaceful face and murmurs playfully that her favorite big brother is here to play. Arya stirs, her eyelids fluttering before she opens them, blinking at him. Her groggy thoughts swirl as she groans that she must have dreamt of a million crows cawing at her, and somehow, that must have been his fault. She tries to lift her tiny hand, her movements clumsy and slow, attempting to tell him that she's still tired. But Anner, misinterpreting her gesture, assumes she wants him to hold her. With trembling hands, he carefully reaches for her and announces proudly that he's going to give her the honor of being held by him. He grins, teasing that she's pretty demanding and daring for someone so little, because no one, not even Very, would ever dare to ask him for anything. He pauses, surprised by the faint sweetness of her scent. She's not annoying at all, he decides. In fact, she smells nice. Maybe she isn't so bad after all. Arya, meanwhile, is stiff with nerves, clearly terrified that he might drop her at any moment. She can tell that he has absolutely no idea how to hold a baby properly. His arms are awkward, his grip uncertain, and her tiny heart races at every small sway. It's uncomfortable, but she can't find the strength to protest. Anner gazes down at her proudly, declaring that he thinks she really likes him. He swings her lightly in his arms, beaming as he says her name aloud, Arya. Then, with smug satisfaction, he adds that she's got great taste, because he's definitely the best one in the Weir family. Arya, dizzy from all the movement, feels her head spin. The world tilts slightly, and she wonders how someone can be this reckless and still look so pleased with himself. But Anner, completely unaware, looks down at her and says that since she likes him so much, he'll just have to accept her. When the Baron quizzes his sons at the study table, Anner hesitates on the next question. He stares blankly at the options, unsure which one to choose until Arya, sitting nearby, discreetly points at one of the letters with her tiny finger. Taking the hint, Anner blurts out the answer B. To everyone's surprise, it turns out to be correct. He bursts out laughing, scooping Arya up with uncontained joy, declaring that she must be his lucky charm. His grin is wide, his tone full of disbelief and affection as he spins her once in the air, exclaiming that he actually got one right for once. Still, the Baron reminds him that his grades are in a terrible state and that he has a lot of catching up to do. The room feels lighter for a moment, but not for long. Little Very, frowning with puffed cheeks, crosses his arms and accuses Anner of cheating. He insists that Arya told him the answer and then, with wide eyes, proclaims that she's a witch. The declaration makes Anner flush red with anger, his earlier joy vanishing in an instant. Before the quarrel can escalate, the Baron raises his voice to stop them. He tells Anner to go with Muriel and focus on catching up with his studies. Then he turns to Very, his tone sharp but controlled, and asks if it's true that he put a curse on his sister. Arya's eyes widen. She cannot believe what she just heard. Did that little brat actually use magic on her? She stares at him, completely baffled. Magic? Is that even real in this world? Her shock quickly shifts into fury. If he really did that, she swears she's going to tear him apart limb by limb. Very's bravado falters immediately. His eyes fill with tears, his small hands trembling as he stammers that it wasn't really a curse. He just wanted her to stop crying, and it didn't even work. His voice cracks as he admits that maybe his magic isn't strong enough to hurt anyone, or maybe she has some kind of strange, resistant body. Arya stiffens. Her heart skips a beat, so he really did try something. That little brat. But his pitiful look only makes her more flustered. She points at him mentally, thinking, it's him. It's totally him. He's pretending to be innocent, but he's a good actor. When Very glares at her suddenly, her pulse quickens. For a split second, she wonders if he figured something out. Does he know she isn't from this world? The thought chills her, but she shakes it off almost immediately. Whatever the case, she's not afraid of him. Not one bit. If he wants to play with magic, then she'll show him what an adult can do. But before that, she really needs to figure out what this so-called magic actually is. A group stand in a sunlit courtyard, and one of them is glaring daggers at another. Her tone drips with venom as she lashes out, demanding to know how the other dares to mouth off to her. She threatens that she'll call her brother to knock some sense into her. Then, with a cruel smirk, she scoffs that nobody wants the girl around anyway. She adds mockingly that perhaps she should call her brother to bail her out before sneering and twisting the knife further. She suddenly remembers aloud that someone like her, an orphan, couldn't possibly have brothers in the first place. But the taunting is cut short by a clear, commanding voice. Someone steps forward, voice steady and sharp. Who says Arya doesn't have brothers? The crowd falls silent. From the far end of the courtyard, 3 young men walk toward her, their presence calm yet unmistakably protective. One of them, Anner, smiles softly at her, the familiar warmth in his eyes easing the tension that hangs over her. When she calls him brother, his expression softens further, and for a fleeting moment, she feels safe. Then she blinks and everything dissolves. She wakes in her bed. It takes her a moment to process it all. She really does have 3 brothers now. The thought feels unreal, almost whimsical. She sits up slowly, marveling at the absurdity of it. Still feels kind of wild to think about, she muses. I wonder if they'll actually be good looking when they grow up. A smile tugs at her lips as she recalls their faces. Anner was so gentle in the dream. Muriel's kind of unpredictable, but very? No way he's turning into a good brother, she thinks with a quiet laugh. Her thoughts are interrupted when the Baroness enters the room. She tells Arya to get cleaned up today. She needs to look especially pretty. They're going out. The household is already buzzing with gossip. At the Grand Manor, the maids chatter among themselves while polishing silver and arranging flowers. They wonder aloud if Lady Catherine is heading into town again for another long shopping trip. Word has it she'll be gone for a whole week this time. The staff sighs with envy. Everyone wants to be the one chosen to accompany her. Those who go always return with arms full of gifts, tokens of Lady Catherine's generosity. One maid leans closer and whispers the news that's sweeping through the estate this time. Lady Catherine is taking Miss Arya along. A murmur of admiration follows. They all agree that Lady Catherine is such a sweet woman, treating Arya as though she were her own daughter. And Arya herself, they note, is a remarkably good child, never fussy, never tearful, always composed beyond her years. Meanwhile, Arya stands before a mirror as the Baroness examines her carefully. After trying on countless dresses, she feels utterly drained, yet the Baroness's enthusiasm never wanes. She comments that Arya must look her best for their trip. Just then, Anna appears at the doorway, asking if she's really planning to take Arya with her into town. The Baroness smiles, explaining that she wants to buy some feminine things, pretty accessories, ribbons, and lace. She adds lightly that Anna wouldn't be interested in such things anyway. She reminds him that their father is going into town as well, and that he and Muriel should accompany him instead. But Anna's expression turns serious. He insists that if Arya goes with the Baroness, he won't be able to see her for days and she'll surely cry without him there. The Baroness laughs softly and assures him that she'll take good care of Arya. Outside, the day is bright and bustling as the carriage rolls through cobblestone streets. The Baroness remarks that it's good to go out once in a while. Being cooped up at home can be so dull. Arya presses her face to the window, eyes wide with wonder. So this is what cities in this world are like, she thinks. The streets are alive with color and noise, the stone buildings stretching tall and proud. The architecture reminds her faintly of Dubrovnik in Croatia, with its terracotta roofs and lively squares. As they pass through the heart of town, she overhears snippets of conversation, mentions of the Tower of God and priests walking in solemn lines. She pieces together fragments of understanding. People here worship a divine being who grants magic through sacred power. The realization sparks curiosity in her mind. Magic, what even is it? She wonders. Does everyone here have it? The Baroness gestures toward a nearby shop with cheerful excitement. It's Anna's favorite dessert spot, she explains, suggesting they buy treats to bring home for everyone. They step inside, greeted by the sweet aroma of pastries and fruit. But before Arya can take in the display, she hears a whisper from across the room. A group of girls glance her way, their expressions smug and unfriendly. One of them scoffs, voice low but cutting, saying that this must be the kid everyone's been whispering about. The ladies express their surprise at seeing the Baroness here. They murmur among themselves that they didn't expect her to show up at all, but then again, after all that family drama, it's understandable. Anyone would be a bit hesitant to show their face in public after such a scandal. One of them mentions that Baron has really gone off the deep end, and another adds that he still hasn't revealed anything about that woman. They scoff that he's still trying to shield her, completely ignoring how the Baroness must feel. The Baroness's lips curl into a faint smile, subtly sarcastic, yet her eyes remain calm and composed. The other lady's gaze, however, is cold, dripping with condescending sympathy. The Baroness tries to brush off their remarks, reading the mood and pretending it's nothing. Yet one of the ladies leans close to whisper to the others, saying that the girl beside her is the mistress's child. She shakes her head, claiming she can never understand how men can behave that way. Arya, standing beside the Baroness, feels her chest tighten. These women, she thinks, are such bullies. It doesn't matter the world, the era, or their social standing, the strong always seem to prey on the weak. That particularly pecky lady raises her voice, declaring that even though Arya is just a girl, there shouldn't be any disputes over inheritance. But she advises the Baroness not to simply roll over, warning that men will always walk over her if she does. With an air of misplaced concern, she suggests that she could help arrange a meeting with a priest. After all, the child could just be sent to the church. As she gestures dramatically, her hand catches her cup, spilling dark grape juice all over her fine clothes. Arya gasps, flustered, stammering that she hadn't meant it. The Baroness immediately steps in, her voice calm as she tries to defuse the situation. She remarks that surely a lady of grace wouldn't hold a grudge against a child. Arya, anxious, assures the Baroness her mother that she's fine. The Baroness freezes for a moment, stunned, before her face breaks into a bright, genuine smile. Her heart swells with warmth at hearing that single word mom. Arya rushes forward and plants a soft kiss on her cheek. The ladies standing nearby are left speechless, utterly taken aback by the sight. The Baroness laughs softly, explaining that this little girl is so attached to her, so glued to her side, that as long as she's near, she never cries or throws a tantrum. Even if she isn't her own flesh and blood, she's closer than her actual children. The Baroness adds with a knowing smile that women shouldn't take men too seriously. Sometimes, a reliable and caring child is worth more than anything else in the world. She gently pats Arya's head, but the pecky lady nearby doesn't look pleased at all, her expression stiff with envy. Another woman, sensing the tension, turns to that pecky lady and asks whether her own child is still staying with her in-laws. The woman's face darkens immediately, and she snaps that they shouldn't talk about that. Then, hastily changing the subject, she exclaims that she almost forgot to introduce the Baroness to this lady. Her name is Ruth. They mention that Ruth's younger sister is at the royal palace almost all the time these days. Her older sister, it turns out, was handpicked by Her Majesty herself to serve as the little prince's personal maid. And now, even His Majesty seems to have taken quite a liking to her. The little prince they speak of is none other than Lucian. Ruth says with polite pride that their family is deeply honored, though she admits her sister has her own struggles. The palace, after all, is not as kind as it appears from the outside. Rumor has it the previous maid was executed for no reason, and that the palace maids are replaced every 6 months without warning. The pecky lady waves her fan with a confident smile, assuring everyone that Ruth's sister will be just fine and will do wonderfully. Her tone is too cheerful, almost dismissive. Arya's thoughts, however, drift elsewhere, her mind instantly connecting the dots. That's right, she recalls, the book said Cyrus was extremely strict with the palace servants to keep Lucian's identity hidden. Everything seems to be unfolding exactly as it did in the history of the Elven Kingdom. The same book had written that the Weir family treated Arya kindly, giving her a peaceful though brief childhood. But that peace didn't last. Once she lost her magic and became an ordinary person, everything changed. When Cyrus and Lucian eventually discovered where she was, her life spiraled into an inescapable tragedy. She had been completely at their mercy. Now, living through this world herself, she can't just sit idly by and watch that same fate repeat. She refuses to be helpless again. How can I be my own master in this world? She wonders. She knows far too little, and knowledge is the only weapon she has. That means she must rely on something, and that something is magic. Her eyes land on the old, leather-bound magic book displayed on the shelf in front of her. They are at the bookstore now. The Baroness, meanwhile, is looking over at Muriel, wondering aloud why he insists on buying so many books. Can he really finish them all? She muses with a small smile. On the other side, Arya keeps trying to reach the book she wants, stretching her small hands toward it. The Baroness notices and takes the book down for her. Arya looks up gratefully, thanking her with bright eyes. Magic, that's where she needs to start. Arya's eyes widen in amazement as she looks at the countless books and trinkets spread out before her. The others watch with growing curiosity, eager to see which one she'll choose. Their eyes follow her every move, whispering among themselves, wondering what has caught the little girl's attention this time. Finally, Arya reaches out and picks the magic book. The Baroness claps her hands lightly with a delighted laugh, exclaiming that she knew it. She tells the others that this particular book is Arya's absolute favorite. The ladies exchange amused glances, one of them chuckling that it's almost uncanny. They whisper to each other in disbelief. How wild is that? Is this little girl wisdom personified or something? Arya, however, is completely absorbed in the pages. She quickly realizes that the language written within is entirely different from the one she knew back in her old world. And yet, somehow, she can read it perfectly. Every symbol, every line makes sense to her. It feels natural, instinctive. That's incredible, she thinks, her heart racing in quiet awe. The book explains that when it comes to Lunaris's magic, there are two main theories. The first group believes that the world was crafted by the god, who then scattered divine power throughout every corner of existence. Spells, in this belief, are the keys to unlocking that sacred energy. Certain individuals, those born with special physiques, can endlessly draw upon and command the divine force through the use of spells. The second theory, however, claims that the world God created is a vast tapestry woven from countless elements. Magic, in this view, isn't divine at all, it's simply the process of rearranging these elemental threads. When a person with the right body and strength gathers enough power, they can create a magical resonance with the spell they cast, and that's when true miracles happen. In short, the book concludes, anyone aiming to master magic must begin by learning spells. Like anything else, one has to start with the basics before moving on to more advanced forms. The maid tries to coax Arya away, attempting to distract her with a toy, but Arya doesn't even glance up. She's too engrossed, too captivated by the secrets of magic before her. The worst part about being a baby, she muses bitterly, is having no independence. It's beyond frustrating. Her eyes drift toward Muriel, who is seated by the window, silent and distant as ever. No one in this household dares to bother him. He carries an air of calm authority that keeps everyone at a careful distance. Later that night, during dinner, the Baroness remarks that Arya hasn't been taking naps lately. All she wants to do is read. Very leans closer and whispers jokingly that she must be a witch. Her sweet, innocent look is totally fake. But he immediately falls silent when both Muriel and Anna turn their sharp gazes toward him. The Baron only chuckles, brushing off the comment. He says it's perfectly normal. Arya is growing so fast every day that before they know it, she'll be sitting right there at the dining table, eating with them like any other member of the family. Suddenly, the lights flicker and go out. The entire hall is plunged into darkness. Anna jumps up, shouting in alarm, demanding to know what on earth is happening to this place. He curses under his breath, declaring that the house must be haunted. The Baroness immediately raises her voice, scolding him to calm down. It's just a power outage, no need to frighten Arya. Then she turns toward the little girl, her tone soft and reassuring, telling her not to be scared, that everything is fine, and the lights will return soon. Very snickers quietly, thinking that Arya must be a total scaredy cat. The Baron, however, remains calm and suggests that it might take a while before the power returns. He orders the servants to light some candles. As the first candle flickers to life, Arya blinks in astonishment. So even this world has power outages, she thinks, half amused. Muriel, without a word, raises his hand, and with a soft pulse of light, magic flares to life at his fingertips. A delicate flame blossoms in midair, warm and steady. The others fall silent, watching the mesmerizing scene as Muriel's magic illuminates the room. Arya stares, transfixed. So this is what fire truly is in this world. The glow dances in his eyes, and for a moment, it looks almost alive, like a tiny dragon of flame curling and coiling in his palm. Muriel is in the middle of his studies when a sudden knock echoes from the door. He gets up, slightly irritated at the interruption, and goes to see who it is, only to find Arya standing there. Without a word, he brings her inside and takes her straight to his mother, asking if the maids could keep an eye on Arya for a while. Lately, she has been constantly darting around the manor like a tiny whirlwind, and he has almost tripped over her more times than he can count. Arya's bright expression falters at his words, her small shoulders sinking as sadness washes over her face. The Baroness, however, only smiles fondly and tells her son that Arya behaves that way because she adores him. That's why she keeps running straight toward him with so much excitement. Muriel glares back, clearly unconvinced, muttering that she's not adoring him, she's seriously bothering him. And so, it seems Arya has finally met her match in this world, Muriel. No amount of sweetness, charm, or wide-eyed innocence works on him. She can pour all her effort into being as irresistibly cute as possible, and he will still look at her with the same unreadable, calm stare. At 15, Muriel is the very image of a prodigy, a brainiac through and through. In the Elven Kingdom, where proper education is a rarity among commoners, his intellect stands far above the rest. When he was only 10, a well-known scholar took notice of his extraordinary talent and personally recommended him for admission into the Royal Academy. It was an opportunity so rare that only a handful ever receive it. Now, he studies alongside the sons and daughters of the realm's highest nobility, including princes and princesses. Muriel, however, remains detached from all of it. His world revolves around books, theories, and research. Everything else, people, emotions, trivial matters, barely registers in his mind. At the Royal Academy, Anastasia sighs in visible frustration while standing in one of the grand, gleaming corridors. She cannot believe she has to hand-deliver something to Muriel of all people. The place itself is breathtaking, yet the errand feels beneath her. Still, she makes her way toward him, clutching the folded papers in her hand. When she finally finds him, Muriel is as expected quietly focused on his notes, his posture perfectly straight, his expression unreadable. A young lady beside him, graceful and smiling, tries to strike up a conversation, casually inviting him to grab a bite later. But Muriel simply picks up Arya, who has been quietly sitting by his side, and tells them that he has to look after his sister. Both Anastasia and Anna stand frozen for a moment, exchanging looks of shock and disbelief once the lady walks away. After a brief silence, Anna finally asks why he lied. Muriel answers without hesitation that the girl he just turned down happens to be the Duke's daughter. They can't afford to upset her. After all, a baron's family stands at the very bottom of the noble hierarchy, and Muriel and his brothers are the sons of Baron Weir. In a world ruled by titles and rank, that makes them the lowest among the highborn. Muriel, however, observes this reality with a calm, calculating gaze. He hadn't expected her, the Duke's daughter, to turn out to be such a surprisingly useful tool. Arya, meanwhile, can't help but worry what exactly he means by that, her thoughts clouded with uneasy questions about what he truly wants from her. At the Royal Academy, she attends class beside him, surrounded by rows of elegant desks and the quiet hum of magical energy. The instructor stands before them, robes rustling as he begins his lecture, his voice sharp and precise. He explains that when casting a fireball spell, the first step is to truly sense the elemental makeup of the environment, the humidity, the temperature, the subtle traces of energy in the air. Their spell, he says, will naturally adapt based on those conditions. Once that connection is made, they must draw the fire elements directly into their hand. The teacher continues, emphasizing that to truly master advanced magic, memorization alone is not enough. They must build a deep, structured understanding of multiple disciplines: chemistry, physics, mathematics, and even ancient elvish studies. Only by combining all of these can one become a genuine scholar of the arcane. Arya listens intently, fully concentrated for once. All her earlier efforts to win Muriel's approval through charm and playfulness have failed miserably. Yet now, by pure accident, she has achieved exactly what she always wanted: to be right by his side, learning together. When Muriel quietly pokes her arm to snap her back to attention, she blinks up at him, startled, but doesn't cry. He notices that small difference: she's growing stronger. Even later, in the library, the same Duke's daughter who once flirted with Muriel approaches again. Muriel, ever composed, gives the same unchanging response that he must look after his sister. During gym class, on a rare day off, Anna tries once more to bridge the awkward distance between his friend and Arya. He calls out that Arya actually wants Muriel to hold her. Muriel turns with his usual dry expression and asks, almost sarcastically, whether she personally told him that. Anna glares at him, clearly irritated by his lack of warmth, but Muriel simply walks off, unbothered. And so begins the next phase of Arya's journey, understanding life in this new world, with its tangled mix of noble hierarchies, secret loyalties, and strange attachments. 5 years later, the Baron is seen sitting at his desk, pen in hand, composing a letter to the Queen. His handwriting is neat, formal, and deliberate. They hope this letter finds her in excellent health. The little princess is absolutely thriving. She's remarkably bright, eager to learn, and so kind-hearted that everyone who meets her is instantly charmed. She spends her days quietly at Muriel's side, lost in her books, yet she also loves running outdoors with Anna. She's full of life and energy, a true angel sent from above. They believe her grace and warmth are blessings of her sacred bloodline. They pray she will soon be reunited with your majesty once more. The Baron folds the parchment with care and hands it to the Baroness, instructing her to give it to the secret envoy for immediate delivery. He mentions that this might be the last letter they send for a while, as the situation in the capital has grown tense and, more importantly, the Queen herself has told them to stop sending letters altogether. The Baroness tells him not to worry. As long as Arya is safe, happy, and thriving, the Queen will surely be at ease. Outside in the courtyard, the maids gather around Arya with cheerful faces and pleading eyes, asking her to tell them another story. They insist that her stories are the best, far better than anything they've ever heard. Arya tilts her head thoughtfully, pretending to consider their request, and then smiles mischievously as she asks what they want to hear today. She decides that, for once, they should skip the usual tales about princes and princesses and talk about something entirely different. She never expected her fairy tales to become such a huge hit among the servants. Time has truly flown by, 5 years have already zipped past like a dream. The book she once read said that it's incredibly important to win people over and build strong connections, and she's taken that lesson to heart. In this life, she has sworn she will never again be the helpless Arya who gets pushed around by everyone. As the maids settle down eagerly, Arya begins her story with a soft but confident tone. She tells them about a sweet little girl everyone adored, called Little Red Riding Hood. One day, that little girl set off into the forest to bring food to her grandmother. The maids listen, completely spellbound by every word, their laughter and gasps punctuating the quiet afternoon air. Watching her from the veranda, the Baron cannot help but sigh. Arya, in his eyes, is far from an ordinary child. She's far too intelligent, too understanding, and far too mature for her age. She doesn't act like a 5-year-old at all, more like a miniature adult. Though her brilliance fills him with pride, it also brings him unease. It might be fine for her to stand out here, in their quiet little region, but what if her light draws unwanted attention? What if a prince or a minister notices her someday? All he truly wishes is for Arya to live a peaceful, happy life, one untouched by royal politics or courtly intrigue ever again. And then, there's her secret identity, something only he and the Baroness know, and something that continues to weigh heavily on their mind. A knock interrupts his thoughts. Muriel steps inside, his posture neat and composed as always. He informs his parents that Arya is already over 5 years old now. When he and his brothers had reached that age, their mother had already arranged tutors for them at home. He explains that no matter what path Arya chooses later in life, early education is crucial for her development. Since he spends most of his time at the Royal Academy, he can't provide her with proper, structured lessons himself. So, he asks, very plainly, what their plan is for her. Both parents fall silent. Muriel continues, stating that Arya is incredibly bright, perhaps even smarter than he was at her age, and that, with the right education, she could easily become someone the entire country would notice. But that is exactly what Baron fears most. The Baroness softly admits that she only wants Arya to stay with her, safe and close, far away from the eyes of nobles and kings. Muriel looks genuinely confused by her words. Hasn't his mother always believed that children should bring honor and prestige to the family name? The Baron explains gently that Arya is still very young and there's no need to rush her into anything yet. Later, the maids whisper among themselves in hushed voices, gossiping that Baron and Muriel had a massive argument, apparently all because of Arya. They are astonished, since Muriel has always been calm and easygoing. None of them ever thought he would stand up to his father, especially not over a little girl. When Varys hears about this, curiosity drives him to see it for himself. As he approaches, he witnesses the tension firsthand, the heavy air between father and son, the sharp words exchanged before Muriel abruptly opens the door and walks out. The Baron calls after him, but Muriel disappears down the hall without turning back. Varys stands frozen, bitterness churning in his chest. He cannot understand why Muriel is always so concerned about that little switch girl. Before she came, their mother and brothers adored him. They used to look after him constantly, treating him with endless warmth and care. But ever since Arya arrived, everything has changed. The Baroness keeps saying that Arya is too little, that everyone must protect her at all costs, and now it feels like the entire household revolves around that illegitimate child. Varys' thoughts spiral with resentment. Why does she get everything handed to her so easily? Why does she have everyone's attention without even trying?